So Mel and Andrew, welcome, and thank you for joining us to give us a bit of a glimpse into your work and the projects you've worked on. Do you want to start by giving a bit of an introduction about yourselves?
Yeah, sure. You go, Moussa.
Thanks, Mel. So I'm currently working at BPAY. I'm a change manager. So what I do is I help understand how change might impact people, processes, or systems. And then we put strategies in place to kind of minimize those impacts, particularly around large projects. So I've come from a background of finance, studied finance at university and economics. I haven't really used a lot of economics since, but a lot of my early experience was in product. So understanding banking products, managing those end to end. So things like insurance and superannuation, retail banking. And then I got sick of finance and banking and I did a stint in non-for-profit. So I worked with the Salvation Army for a little bit, which was very refreshing compared to finance. And I also took a bit of a career change. So rather than looking after products, I wanted to get into the world of change. It was fascinating to see how projects can evolve and how they can become a lot more successful when you really understand how things impact people and try and fix it. So after my stint at Salvation Army, I did come back to the dark side in finance, and but the BPAY is definitely quite refreshing when you look at the finance industry. So in terms of what we do, BPAY as a product is, as you might see in your online banking, it's a fast, easy way to pay your bills. As a company though, BPAY are all about bringing together all of the banks. So we have relationships with about 150 banks across Australia. And when you think about how you pay a bill, we take the money from you and are an intermediary, and pass that on to whoever it is that you're paying your bill to. And that's between each of the banks of yourself and say, Sydney Water, whoever it is that you're paying your bill with. So whilst at BPAY, my role is all about change and how you manage change, I get thrown into a lot of other things. And one of those things that I am really fortunate to have been involved in is this research project that we'll talk to in the rest of this webinar. But the good thing is it's given me a lot of background in terms of understanding our customers who we consider to be those 150 banks.
Okay. Mel?
Yeah, hi. My name is Melinda Carbonell. Everybody calls me Mel or Melzy. I am what you call a design and innovation consultant, which is just a fancy way of saying service designer, essentially. I work for a company that is called Tobias, and they've been in their current form for probably about 6 years, but been in the design industry for probably closer to 20 years. We've got two big heavy hitters in the design industry that work for us, Simon Tobias, and then also Ash Donaldson, who, often present at conferences and things like that around human-centred design, which is really our core business. We help different businesses and also government apply design principles to whatever they want, usually the design of different services. But we also work with products as well. So we do a lot of user experience design, interaction design, and service design. And my role there is, innovation consultant. But essentially what I do is a lot of primary research. I'm a bit of an expert in the research space. So I'm more upfront in the design part. If you sort of see design in two sort of sections, the figuring out the way to design something and then designing it later. I do most of the figuring out side. I started in psychology, actually. I studied psychology when I first came out of high school and loved it, but didn't feel like committing to 6 years of study. So ended up switching to education, and I worked in that field for 10 years. I did primary school education and also special needs education, but decided that it was pretty stressful working in public schools and wanted to move into something a bit more creative. And so I love design. Initially, I thought about visual communication and graphic design, but then got pretty interested in web design. So I actually studied web design at Billy Blue, and I did user experience design there too. Ended up getting an intern role with one of my lecturers there, and he had a web design agency, and through a few contacts got my current position. And what I found was when I was out in the design field, I actually really loved the research side of things, and so that's sort of how I ended up where I am.
Awesome, thank you. You both have a very rich background, lots of different paths. It's not just like a one direct, straightforward path. So now you've ended up at BPAY and Tobias, and over the past few years, you've been working together, I guess Tobias and BPAY have been working together on different projects. Can you talk to us a bit about the project that you guys were working on together?
Sure. So about 2 years ago, we kicked off this research project. We called it the Customer Moments of Truth. And for BPAY, there were two main objectives. So the first was, as I mentioned, the banks who we consider our customers. And the first thing we wanted to do was better understand how they operationally support the BPAY product and the services. So, we have a rough set of guidelines and rules that all the banks need to work within, but each of them might do things slightly different. So we really wanted to dive deep and understand how do they do it and how do they do it differently, and document some of that. The other important thing that we really wanted to understand was to get a view across what their pain points were. So we know that a lot of them really love the BPAY product. They find it easy to work with, but surely there were some things that we've heard in the past, but we wanted to get a more quantitative view. So, like a consensus view across a number of banks all at the same time on what is it that they really wanted us to prioritize and work with them on. So the purpose of the research wasn't just for research's sake, but to kind of set us up in terms of what would a pipeline of activity look like beyond the research. So if they told us that these were all the things that they needed help with or that we really should improve, how would we prioritize those? And then how could we deliver on those over time so that they could see the value in the time we took up in the research? It was really important that at the start of the project that we had a mission statement. So something that always brought us back to focus, because when you do research, it's quite easy to go really broad, maybe kind of figure out why we were there in the first place. So something that Tobias really helped us with was honing in on that mission statement, but also ensuring that that was well agreed, not just in our project team, but with the leadership across BPAY who were also involved. And that mission statement was developing a deeper understanding of our members, who we consider the banks. And it was all about how they operate and how we can drive mutual success, so how BPAY and our customers can succeed in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly what Moussa said. From my point of view, this is like a very open research project. It was kind of great because they didn't have a specific problem really they wanted to hone in on. We were just really asked to just go talk to their customers and find out, well, what are the big points that we need to focus on, and then we could advise them on that. So what we did was we set up a whole bunch of research. I think we talked to over 30 people in different institutions, and we called this contextual inquiry when we actually go out into their workplace and sit with them where they would do work and ask them about, well, when you deal with BPAY, what's it like? And how do you feel about that? And we captured a lot of things to do with them, the motivations, the attitudes and the behaviours around how they use BPAY and what it's like for them. After we did a lot of research, then the next part of our job is really to feed that back to BPAY as a company in a way that they can understand it. And this is where visual communication comes in, because at Tobias, we really think it's much easier for our clients to understand what we're doing if we're presenting it to them in a really simplified and easy to understand way. So we have a couple of amazing visual communicators that work with us. Two of them are JMC alumni, actually. So we've got Daz, Darren Ho and Braddon. They're so great. And Daz was actually working on this project. But essentially what they did was create some artifacts that help BPAY understand, what are the results of our research. So instead of feeding back enormous amounts of text and verbatim of what people said, we designed things like a journey map, posters, design principles, and things that had sketches on them and pictures and images that would make it easy for BPAY to digest and then make decisions about what they wanted to focus on. So I've got a couple of things to show. Should I do that now, Diana? Show a couple of, yeah. So I just wanted to show you guys some of the things we created. Let me just share my screen. Okay. Okay, so are you guys seeing customer moments of truth? What's our story? Demystified? Okay, great. So here's something that one of our visual communicators created for us. It was kind of a way to explain what's our process. So I think as a designer, particularly in service design, but probably any form of design you do, a lot of people don't understand what the process is like. They just see the output and think, wow, that was pretty quick. Must have taken you a few hours to do that. But we wanted to sort of explain to people, no, there's a huge process in what we do. So this little poster was a little handout that we could give to anybody that we spoke to, either internally or externally, to see, what is it that we do here? So, we want to get to know you better, find out how things are working. We hope to discover what's happening in your world. It's just kind of a way to demystify our process a little bit. Because when people, come in, when you do research with people, I think some people are a little bit scared, but primary research is actually more like a conversation and asking people about what they think and feel. So this is a little artifact that we had here. Let me show you another one. I'm just going to stop sharing that one. And yeah, so essentially we went out to talk to a whole bunch of different financial institutions. And okay, you're seeing customer moments of truth bank now? Yeah. So to give a very quick overview of what we found in each bank or institution we talked to, we created these pages. So we drew lots of different sketches that were quick examples of how people thought and felt about certain things. I blurred out all the text, but essentially, each of these might have been, it takes too long to do this. It's such an effort. I don't understand this area, whatever it was. We put a little bit of text and created, a little image to go with it. And then these images actually got transferred later to our journey map. So along the way, people are starting to already understand, oh, I remember that picture. That picture was about this issue. Oh, and this is one of the issues on our journey map. It's just like a very good, quick reminder of the analysis of what we found out. And then ultimately, we created this journey map. So you should be able to see customer moments of truth in the top left. Is that right? And then the journey map, is it up on the screen?
No, not yet.
No, okay, hold on a sec. Let me stop sharing. Okay, try again. Okay, can you see that now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so this is a big, this is like the culmination of all of our research. The project took 12 weeks, and what we did to just simplify everything that we found out was to look at the whole journey that the customers go on and look at different things that they're doing, feeling and thinking on the way, and help to explain to BPAY, oh look, this is what you've got to focus on. So let me just zoom in on a few things here. Oops. Hold on one second. Yeah, so you can see we've got sort of an explanation of the project that we did. And here are our pictures along the top that were pictures that we used from our analysis. So every interview and things we had, we'd give a little bit of analysis, and then we'd show, a little picture with it. And then we took those pictures and we put them on the journey map. So people were already familiar with all the themes and things we were coming up with. We also did this feeling sort of barometer in the middle here. Is that big enough for you guys to see? Sort of. You get the gist? Yeah. So, you know, when they got to a certain part in the journey, perhaps they felt safe, they felt unsure, uncertain, informed, accepting, those kinds of things. Just a very quick way to understand when you're looking at the whole map, all right, that area of red, well, that's going to be a tough bit. We've got to focus on that bit. Or that blue bit, well, they love that bit, you know, that's really good, you know. And then a lot of what we do is identify pain points. So you can see one of the biggest swim lanes here is this pink one, all about the pain points, because once you capture those, you know, those are really powerful tools to help you improve whatever you're designing. And down the bottom, we linked all of those pain points to opportunity areas. So, you know, yes, this is an area where your customer's feeling pain, but what can you do with that? That was one of the things that Tobias did. We created opportunities or helped to identify what the opportunities would be for people. So yeah, might just leave it there. So
Andrew, how does your team use artifacts like the journey map that were produced from this project? Was there one outcome that was the most useful one? And how did you use it?
Yeah, all of those artifacts were really useful, and we used them throughout different parts of the project. So the first few that Mel showed were really important in taking especially internal people along the journey at BPAY. So we were really keen to make sure that we share our progress often, so that one, people are aware at BPAY of what we're doing, and secondly, we could get feedback as we go along. It was really refreshing as well to be able to share something that had pictures rather than reams of text. It was a lot easier for people to digest, and just a lot more interesting for them to understand and to look at. It was the journey map, I think, was to me, it's like one of the best artifacts I've seen produced out of a partnership like this, where it was, again, as Mel mentioned, it took you through from the pictures that people were used to around understanding what have we uncovered from the research so far, but continuing to make that connection in terms of not just what's happening, but really what are people thinking, what are they feeling, what are they doing. That was new to me, but really insightful as people were looking at it. And then finally, the link to the opportunity area. So not just, what have we heard, but what can we do about it? And really using that positive language. So the way it was phrased was, how might we? So HMW statements, which I love. They're easy for people to understand. And we still use them at BPAY now. Whenever we're facing an issue, it's trying to understand, how do we progress that to beyond the issue into, well, how might we do something about it? This artifact itself, the journey map, Tobias printed a massive version of this for us, which we always have stuck up on our project wall. And it's a constant reminder for us on what did we hear from our customers, and are we continuing to deliver to what they told us during the research. After this research project was completed 2 years ago, shortly after, within a couple of months, we kicked off our own like a program of work, a rolling program of work through which we would deliver different initiatives. And that project, Wall Space, is right next to where this poster is. So we're constantly reminded that, well, our customers have told us this, how are we prioritising all the different initiatives that we want to now deliver to make improvements to where we heard there was pain, or enhancements where we think we can make things better. And since that time 2 years ago, there's been maybe about 30 different initiatives that we've delivered. The great thing that we've been able to do is to go back to the banks periodically as well and say, remember you told us this 2 years ago, well, here's how much we've done so far against that research and the feedback you gave us. And then another 6 months later, we give another checkpoint, and we've constantly done that right up until now. So one thing we're about to do in the coming weeks is to say, well, 2 years ago, we did this research, and over that time, here's the full list of things we've done. Here's how you prioritise them, and here's how we prioritise the initiatives that we delivered. So I've got to say that everything that was produced throughout the project, right up to this final artifact, was very useful. We were given, obviously beyond just this one artifact, a large report that was written by Tobias, but the number of times I refer to that as opposed to this journey map is a lot less. It's great to have there in the background. That's where all the content is, output from not just the research, but also workshops that we ran with internal groups to work out how we prioritize things. And I think another thing that Mel hasn't shown here, but is quite impressive, and I've shared it actually with quite a few people internally, is the use of post-it notes. So we were all drowning in post-it notes during this research project. But I loved that because it was just a quick and easy way to capture what people were saying. So it didn't matter what the context was, whether it was during the interview or whether we were doing analysis afterwards, there was just walls of post-it notes. But what Mel and the team turned that into was an online version of that. And we still have access to that. So at any point that I want to go back and dive deeper into any one of those topics that I mentioned during the research, I can go and see all the original feedback that we got, sorted by different categories, and each item on a different post-it note. But yeah, that was another just great visual way to understand the research.
Great. It sounds like BPAY changed a lot of their workflow and the way they work but through the experience of human-centered design. Like culturally, do you think that, well, it feels like that changed, right? In terms of just the attitude and towards customers. You have a very customer-led approach.
Yeah, true. And one of our values for a few years now has been customer first. So we are very serious about understanding who our customers are, what their needs are. Before this research, we had actually partnered with Tobias to come up with an innovation framework. So it was all meant to be led by that human-centered design thinking. And that really has, over the years, just transformed the way BPAY works. So we've gone from a leader in bill payments to really a leader in things like real-time payments. Some of you might be familiar with the OSCO products. That's a BPAY Group product. We've also launched a couple of new businesses and startups, but also just multiple innovations over the years. So a lot of that has been helpful, having that framework around innovation and the encouragement to look at innovation as something important that BPAY needs to do.
You've also won the Good Design Award in 2019 as well. So that's a big testament.
Yeah, that's true, and that was in large part due to that journey we've been on, coming from setting up that innovation framework through to actually not just having a theoretical framework, but having real examples on how we've, as an organisation, applied that innovation thinking through small to large initiatives.
I think it's an important point for students today in design, any kind of design that you're in, just really learn the foundation and core principles of human-centered design, because you can apply them to anything. Like, you guys are going to be experts in visual communication, and that's awesome, but don't think you have to be pigeonholed into just, designing posters or whatever traditional graphic design used to be in the past. You can really get out there into business and help them design whatever it is that they want. If you're an expert in the principles of how to talk to people and how to research what it is you need to design, then you can apply your skills anywhere. And we have Daz and Braddon now with us at Tobias, and they do amazing things for us. And businesses love it, and that's the way that I think it's heading. It's kind of trending that businesses that are successful are actually starting to think in different ways, and using design principles is one of the ways that they're changing. So, put yourself out there, go for things that are more than just what a graphic designer might traditionally do, and stretch yourself, because there's so many opportunities, and we're desperate for for people. I think we've had 3 visual communicators on at one time, and we've got 12 people I think working in our business at the moment. And we do mostly, I guess, business consultancy and strategy and service design kind of stuff, but to have 3 visual communicators is quite a lot. It's because what you guys do is essential to help us communicate the value of our work.
I did want to ask, Mel, when we think, well, the project you showed, obviously it's in a financial kind of setting and context. And even us as visual communicators, when we get, if we do work in a context like that, we might feel like drawings have no place there. It's quite a serious kind of setting. So everything has to be clean and, so what value do you think drawings and those kinds of images that you showed us bring to the project?
Yeah, look, I think it really sets a different mood for what you're doing, because, yeah, we do work in a lot of places that can be, for lack of a better word, sort of stuffy. Finance, like you said, Moussa, is not like your favourite place in the world to work. We work with a lot of government, we work in health, transport, and there's, they're stuck in their ways a lot of the time, and you need to help them have a bit of fun with what they're doing, enjoy what they're doing. And I think it's very relatable to have a sketch as opposed to a photo, but sketches just sort of make everything a little bit more casual, and yeah, easily understandable. It's been great. And Tobias has sort of worked towards creating their own visual library with the help of our amazing visual communicators over the past few years. So they've developed a Tobias style for drawing. And we've got a huge visual library now that we can access anytime we want to help support all the work that we're doing. And, I don't think there's a single report that I deliver now where I don't put some kind of cute sketch, to break the ice. And I use it all the time as well. I think it's a lot nicer when things don't feel like you worked on them forever and ever. Like it's not the most perfect, amazing photoshopped image. Sketches and things that are quick and simple make people feel like you can talk about it, like it's not a finished product, that it's constantly developing. And that's really what design is. It's not ever something that's just finished and that's it. You need to revisit and keep working on it. And that's really the power of what sketching and drawing can do for you.
I got to say, when the project started, or before it started, I was looking at who from Tobias would be involved in this, and I could kind of understand the different roles. And then it did have this line that talked about a visual
communicator.
And I didn't really know what to expect. And I was told, just trust, just trust us. You'll see the value. And I absolutely saw the value. I'd love a visual communicator on every project that I have now, in that ability to convey the message in such a simpler, clearer way than, again, the many words on a page.
I did want to ask Andrew if there was a bit of resistance from your team, like, why did they show us sketches? Like, we want a lot of data.
Yeah, I think it was definitely before we got to see some of the output, just knowing where is it that they're really going to be able to contribute. What is it, just going to be some images, but then you see it's all about how do we better convey the messages. And as a change manager myself, it's all, how do you always bring people on a journey, whether that's people I'm working with in an organisation who I need to keep informed of the project, or our customers who we're including in the research or the final output. That part was a huge help.
Are you more comfortable now to just jump in and do a sketch or come up with an idea?
Personally, my skills are very poor when it comes to that. But
don't sell yourself short.
I know. But it is important to just give it a go. Yeah, like one of the activities, one of the final activities that was part of this project was what was called a design studio. And I'm sure Mel could better explain it than myself. But it was an opportunity for a lot more of our organisation, as well as our customers who are involved in the research, to be involved in helping us come up with some solutions to the problems that we heard. And a big part of that was just getting some pen to paper, text to paper, and drawing out some of our ideas. And you're right, I don't think that the skill set is important at that stage. It's just getting something out of your brain and onto paper, and showing that visually makes it was much easier to talk to the ideas when they were pictures rather than words.
Yeah, on top of that, like, sketching is not the only form that a visual communicator can use. And like a lot of what we've done is also video, and some of the alumni from JMC are, Braddon is just like a whiz at storytelling through video as well. So your skills, applicable to lots of different mediums. And, what I need to convince my clients of, generally what my role is to create empathy with their end customer, right? To get them to understand the end customer's feelings, needs and wants, right? That's essentially what I want to do. And the best way to do that is to tell the story of the customer. And how can you do that without, just on words, maybe, but, an image, great, a video, even better. It's really quick, and it really just helps people to create that connection in a very instant way. So yeah, there's heaps of different ways that you can do it. And yeah, it's essential to what I do in service design.
Working together, how do the both teams work together in terms of there's sometimes quite a bit of separation between client and designer, but it sounds like you guys were quite almost one integrated team. How does that change the way things work on the projects?
But I think it comes down to the mindset you have about the relationship. So BPAY in itself has a very inclusive culture, and we just see it more as partnerships rather than we're the client, you're the supplier. If you start with the right mindset around the partnership, you get a lot better. It feels a lot more natural throughout the project, and you have a much better outcome, I think, at the end. Some simple practical things that we put in place were things like making sure that we all sat together physically, sat together in a workspace within the BPAY office. It gave us a home. It also gave us a place that we could stick up all of our artifacts. So, those thousands of post-it notes I talked about before, they were all right there next to us while we're working. And it was an opportunity for people as they walk through the office to stop by, have a chat to us as a team, or just read kind of where we've gotten up to so far in the research. And it also, I think, combined with the fact that BPAY is very inclusive, the more comfortable Mel and the team felt, the more we'd just see them making a coffee and in the kitchen and chatting with other BPAY people. It was really nice to see. Like it didn't necessarily require me to make an introduction. It was something where the team felt comfortable enough to kind of be part of the BPAY family. And something that I've mentioned to Mel a few times, and yourself, Diana, and I've mentioned it to other people as well, is that at some point during, and it was quite early on, the Tobias team they were using the word "we" when referring to BPAY, and that made me feel like they genuinely care about the success of this project as much as we do, and it made a big difference. Right? They feel like we want this to succeed. We want to do the right thing by you and by your customers, and get a great outcome for you as a partner throughout this partnership. So that was, I think they're all the nice things. And I think the other part in a partnership, and when you think of any relationship, is transparency and honesty. So the Tobias team felt comfortable telling us hard truths when we needed to hear them. That could be about deadlines, could be about the research that we're hearing, and that made it easy for me to then translate some of that information up to my leadership team to help us with direction throughout the project. So really important to have that component in there as well.
Yeah, I think it's something that Tobias does a lot. We try to embed ourselves with the client that we're working with, even if it's not a full-time thing, at least a couple of days a week, just to give them an overview of what our process is. I think, like I was saying before, you know, sometimes the outputs of design don't really show the enormous amount of work and effort that have gone into it. So we try to invite our clients to come along the journey with us and show them our process and our thinking. And I think it's one of the amazing things about designers is that we're quite adaptable. We can fit in wherever. And it's really a breath of fresh air, especially in a place like finance or government, where they, you know, they do the same thing all the time, and it can get quite focused on one or two sort of things. Whereas designers have, you know, they think about the world from a different point of view. And I think if you're going out and working anywhere, just feel free to be yourself. I think you'll get a really good response from people when you show them your sketchbook, when you talk about what a crappy coffee this is, or, you know, whatever, because I think some people get very, I don't know, concerned with hierarchy, they get concerned with outcomes, and they get concerned with money. But when you're there going, how do people feel? And do you want to have a look at my, you know, my sketch and that kind of stuff? It's really refreshing. And then it helps to influence people later. So if you have a certain idea that you really want to push, an area that you think that the client should go towards, if you've spent the time with them, it actually influences them and their thinking a little bit. And, you know, they're more willing to go along with you if they know that you've actually put a lot of thought and effort into what you're asking them to do. And you do that by showing them and being open about who you are in your process.
That's great. Great, thanks guys. So before we open it up for questions, do you have any advice, any specific advice for our students that you want to share?
You start, Mel.
Yeah, definitely. So, you know, when I studied design, I wanted to do graphic design, but I thought maybe I'll do something a bit more future facing. So I sort of thought web design. But, you know, I don't think you should pigeonhole yourself as a designer. I think you should really, learn those core principles of design and then think about how you could apply them in any space. You know, if you're looking for work, don't just apply for graphic design roles. Apply for any design role. Start as a junior, you know, interaction designer. Start as a junior UX designer. It doesn't matter. What you're learning now is really can be applied across a lot of different areas. And I think design is a really great space for people to show their unique characteristics. Doesn't matter what your personality type is, you know, be yourself, because it's quite endearing. Designers are very empathic people. We know and understand people well, even if it's just internally, if you're more of an introvert, or externally if you're more of an extrovert. These are, you know, that's something that's really one of your great skills, and you should play to that, because I think it's lost a lot in business world and company worlds. So yeah, don't lose touch of your feelings and display them, and be open about who you are, and it's going to get you pretty far. Yeah.
Great. Andrew, do you have anything to add to that?
I definitely agree with Mel, just that openness and being yourself. You can't go wrong, right? And it is what endears you to people. It doesn't matter what type of context that's in. And also, don't be too concerned about, you know, the decisions you make now not being the decider for the rest of your life. You know, things I thought at the end of school, at the end of my, you know, further studies, a couple of years into my career, what I think now, there's always an opportunity to change, and it can be, you know, within, or depending on where you start within your own industry. But yeah, I think just don't be afraid to take a chance, see if it works. And if it doesn't, that's okay. You know, then try something different. Or if you're interested in something else, then try that as well. And if that works, great. And if it doesn't, that's okay as well. So yeah, definitely don't be afraid to throw yourself out there.
That's great. Great advice. Thank you.
And I might just add one more thing, if I can, Diana. The other thing that's what's, you know, pretty important, especially in Sydney space, is making connections with other people. So I highly recommend that you start building your network right now. Doesn't really matter what stage you are in your study. Start linking up with people. You know, meetups are a bit tough right now, but once they get happening again, start doing that. I did quite a few of those when I was studying, and it was a brilliant place to meet people. And I actually got an internship out of one of the meetups that I went to. So, you know, I started interning at a place that did more sort of research and service design called Proto Partners. And from there, one of the girls I worked with there suggested me for the role that I'm in now. And it's all about sort of people, you know, it's a very small world in design, especially in Sydney. And so if people sort of know your face and your name, then they're more willing to like chat and talk to you. And it's great. Like, it's a very collegial sort of career path, but you've got to get out there and start to, you know, get your face and name seen by people.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, maybe we'll open it up for some questions if you guys are okay with that. Does any of the attendees have any questions for Andrew and Mel?
I've got one. It's Alan.
Hi, Alan.
Hiya. I had a question for Andrew. I was just wondering how you guys found Tobias in the initial, like, how did you actually go and find them? Did you know about what service design is, and did you just Google, or did you already have some connection?
I only know so far as the project that I worked on that we already had an existing relationship with Tobias. So you know, years before, we'd worked on this innovation framework, and then after that, we worked with Tobias on another research and design project. So out of which we delivered a product that is now in market. So I think our good experience during that, and that relationship was all the way through BPAY, so through our product team, but also right up to the CEO. And there was good acknowledgement of the value that comes out of working with Tobias.
Right.
And that they are a good cultural fit. And that's important for any organisation. You know, as I mentioned, one of our values is think customer. So really, anyone that we work with, we want to have this good alignment in terms of values, and an organisation who we know is going to be honest with us, who's going to push us, and that we see good value out of it at the end. So when we were looking at undertaking this research project, and we knew to a certain extent we might be able to do this by ourselves, but we would supercharge that if we would then work with someone like Tobias, who had the right practices in place, but also who could teach us those practices. So I think, you know, to be realistic, we weren't going to bring Tobias every year to help us do this research project. You know, we know that, they know that, but we have brought Tobias on for different things since then. But what's really important is that throughout this, they were educating, you know, me personally and our media project team, but also a continued education for the organisation around how these things can be done. So it's more sustainable, and you know, we embed some of those practices, and you know, from week to week, year to year, we then undertake more subtly these kind of research
Right.
with our banks.
Cool, thank you.
That's an interesting question, Alan. I think the space, Mel, correct me if I'm wrong, but the space that design consultancies have now used to be traditionally more business consultancy. So it is a bit of an interesting thing to think about. How do companies now think of, oh, I need a service design. Oh, this is a service design project, what I'm trying to do to understand my customers better. When it was, I think before it was more, it's a business consultancy thing, right?
Yeah, definitely. It has sort of shifted in the past few years, and it's about, you know, it's a lot about people, you know, but we get work in lots of different ways. Like I said, it's kind of a small space where we work, and if you keep up your network and your connections, then, you know, people tend to give you a bit of sniff of what's around and what you could fill in. With government though, Australian government is actually getting pretty progressive if you think about it compared to different countries around the world. And so government is often putting out job calls for people that do what we do. You know, they want to apply design principles to business. So that's really great. We've done lots of work, especially for federal government, but also New South Wales state. Yeah, so, you know, things are moving more in that direction. I think people start to, like these words like service design, human-centered design are becoming a little bit more common. So, you know, people understand it a bit more and know that that's the service that they want.
It still sounds like it's a trend in financial health and government though. Is that right? That's where I started maybe, and then now it's kind of expanding.
Yeah, well, I don't know exactly where it started, but, you know, bigger companies like Fjord and IDEO, you know, they really paved the way for companies that do the kind of work that we do. And, you know, this kind of stuff has existed sort of in the tech world for sort of 30, 40 years, you know, something along the lines of an interaction designer or user experience designer. It just wasn't called that back in the day. You know, different terms come up like information architect and stuff like that. It's just changed its role over the life cycle. But I think now the value of it is really becoming a lot more apparent. And you're seeing a lot of companies that are sort of in the top, say, 500 in Australia are the companies that are using these principles to develop innovation in what they do.
Well, thanks guys. Thanks for joining, and hopefully we'll see you at the next one.